Hey, it's Sue. Thanks for joining me for today's Bible reading for August 3rd. And I'm reading Isaiah 28 to 30 today from the World English Bible. And I promised I would read some introductory paragraphs from different versions of the Bible. And this one that I'm going to read to you is from the King James Version for you King James enthusiasts out there. It's the introductory paragraph to the book of Isaiah. And this one's adds in a little extra bits for us to add to our knowledge. And I'm doing this because it's just going to reinforce some things in our mind, kind of a foundation for reading this book. It's not going to explain the whole book to us. Again, it's not a Bible study, just a Bible reading. But the book of Isaiah definitely requires study. You know, the Bible is not a normal book. Okay. It's God's word. It's different. You read it differently. You learn it differently. It's a learning curve. Okay. So, this requires learning context and background and idioms of the day, what the audience that it was written to for that day would have readily recognized certain expressions and meanings and symbols, etc. It requires understanding something of the prophetic timeline. Here in chapter 5, there's a parable and a little bit of, the geography of the surrounding nations, which I've talked a little bit about that. So it's not a book that you learn overnight. Like I said before, get the introductory and the outline and read it a few times, a lot of times preferably, and then get some good study material on it. So here's the introduction to the book of Isaiah in this King James Study Bible. It says, "The book of Isaiah is a potentially intimidating challenge for novice Bible readers, but it is rich and rewarding pursuit for those willing to delve into it. Its 66 chapters comprise the fifth longest book in the Bible in terms of word count, but even more daunting than its sheer length is the prophetic nature of the writing. The author writes of events that cover centuries, and it can be difficult in places to tell if he speaks of the present, the near future, or the long-range future. Yet while the prophet's narrative can be a bit confusing in places, large portions are quite clear in presenting a merciful God who does not give up on his people, even though they have been repeatedly rebellious and wayward." The name Isaiah, meaning salvation of Yahweh, is closely related to the name Joshua. Yahweh is salvation, which is the Old Testament equivalent of the name Jesus. However, not much is known about the prophet other than what he reveals in his book. Little more is known about his personal life. Justin Martyr recorded the tradition that Isaiah died a martyr's death at the hands of King Manasseh, sawed in two, possibly the source of the reference in Hebrew 11:37. Last bit. Isaiah's purpose in writing is described during a vision in which he receives his calling from God. Chapter 6. He is instructed to speak to his people, even though most are spiritually rebellious and disobedient will not listen to him. Jesus later quotes this very passage to explain why he uses parables to teach the people in Matthew 13. Isaiah faithfully brings God's word to the people, warning anyone who will listen of what is to come. So that's it. And today's section, since I have the King James open, let me look at the headings because the World English Bible that I'm reading from does not have headings. And I really like the headings. They help a lot. So today we're reading 28 through 30. 28 says, "The prediction of the Assyrian captivity and the fate of Ephraim." And then 29, "Impending discipline and blessing after deliverance." There's that hope, that light at the end of the tunnel. And 30, "Warnings against an alliance with Egypt." We saw that in the Bible Project overview. It talked a little bit about that alliance with Egypt. So let's get started reading 28 through 30 today, only 3 chapters. Verse 1. "Woe to the crown of pride of the drunkards of Ephraim, and to the fading flower of his glorious beauty, which is on the head of the fertile valley of those who are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord has a mighty and strong one, like a storm of hail, a destroying storm, and like a storm of mighty waters overflowing, he will cast them down to earth with his hand. The crown of pride of the drunkards of Ephraim will be trodden underfoot. The fading flower of his glorious beauty, which is on the head of the fertile valley, shall be like the first ripe fig before the summer, which someone picks and eats as soon as he sees it. In that day, Yahweh of armies will become a crown of glory and a diadem of beauty to the residue of his people, and a spirit of justice to him who sits in judgment, and strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. They also reel with wine and stagger with strong drink. The priest and the prophet reel with strong drink. They are swallowed up by wine. They stagger with strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all tables are completely full of filthy vomit and filthiness. Whom will he teach knowledge? To whom will he explain the message? Those who are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts. For it is precept, precept on precept, precept on precept, line on line, here a little, there a little. But he will speak to this nation with stammering lips and in another language, to whom he said, This is the resting place, give rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. Therefore Yahweh's word will be to them precept on precept, precept on precept, line on line, here a little, there a little, that they may go, fall backward, be broken, be snared, and be taken. Therefore hear Yahweh's word, you scoffers, that rule this people in Jerusalem. Because you have said, We have made a covenant with death, and we are in agreement with Sheol. When the overflowing scourge passes through, it won't come to us, for we have made lies our refuge, and we have hidden ourselves under falsehood. Therefore the Lord Yahweh says, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone of sure foundation. He who believes shall not act hastily. I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the plumb line. The hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters will overflow the hiding place. Your covenant with death shall be annulled, and your agreement with Sheol shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge passes through, then you will be trampled down by it. As often as it passes through, it will seize you, for morning by morning it will pass through, day by day, morning by morning it will pass through, by day and by night, and it will be nothing but terror to understand the message. For the bed is too short to stretch out on, the blanket is too narrow to wrap oneself in. For Yahweh will rise up as on Mount Perazim. He will be angry as in the valley of Gibeon, that he may do his work, his unusual work, and bring to pass his act, an extraordinary act. Now therefore don't be scoffers, lest your bonds be made strong, for I have heard a decree of destruction from the Lord Yahweh of armies on the whole earth. Give ear and hear my voice, listen and hear my speech. Does he who plows to sow plow continually? Does he keep turning the soil and breaking the clods? When he has leveled its surface, doesn't he plant the dill and scatter the cumin and put the wheat in rows, and the barley in the appointed place, and the spelt in its place? For his God instructs him in right judgment and teaches him. For the dill are not threshed with sharp instrument, neither is a cart wheel turned over the cumin, but the dill is beaten out with the stick, and the cumin with the rod. Bread flour must be ground, so he will not always be threshing it. Although he drives the wheel of his threshing cart over it, his horses don't grind it. This also comes out from Yahweh of armies, who is wonderful in counsel and excellent in wisdom. Chapter 29. Woe to Ariel, the city where David encamped. Add year to year, let the feasts come around. Then I will be distressed, Ariel, and there will be mourning and lamentation. She shall be to me as an altar hearth. I will encamp against you all around you, and will lay siege against you with posted troops. I will raise siege works against you. You will be brought down and will speak out of the ground. Your speech will mumble out of the dust. Your voice will be as one who has a familiar spirit out of the ground. Your speech will whisper out of the dust. But the multitude of your foes will be like fine dust, and the multitude of the ruthless ones like chaff that blows away. Yes, it will be in an instant, suddenly. She will be visited by Yahweh of armies with thunder, with earthquake, with great noise, with whirlwind and storm, and with the flame of a devouring fire. The multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel. Okay, I stopped and looked it up. The internet says that Ariel, I didn't even look at what the source was, y'all. I just paused and looked it up, but it says that Ariel is the name for Jerusalem. I didn't remember that. So verse 7 again, the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all who fight against her and her stronghold, and who distress her, will be like a dream, a vision of the night. It will be like when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he eats, but he awakes, and his hunger isn't satisfied. Or like when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he drinks, but he awakes, and behold, he is faint, and he is still thirsty. The multitude of all the nations that fight against Mount Zion will be like that. Pause and wonder. Blind yourselves and be blind. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For Yahweh has poured out on you a spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, the prophets, and he has covered your heads, the seers. All vision has become to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one who is educated, saying, "Read this, please." And he says, "I can't, it is sealed." And the book is delivered to one who is not educated, saying, "Read this, please." And he says, "I can't read." The Lord said, "Because this people draws near with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but they have removed their heart far from me, and their fear of me is a commandment of men which has been taught. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, and the wisdom of their wise men will perish, and the understanding of their prudent men will be hidden. Woe to those who deeply hide their counsel from Yahweh, and whose deeds are in the dark, and who say, 'Who sees us, and who knows us?' You turn things upside down. Should the potter be thought to be like the clay, that the thing made should say about him who made it, 'He didn't make me'? Or the thing formed of him who formed it, 'He has no understanding'? Isn't it yet a very little while, and Lebanon will be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field will be regarded as a forest? In that day the deaf will hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind will see out of obscurity and out of darkness. The humble will also increase their joy in Yahweh, and the poor among men will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the ruthless is brought to nothing, and the scoffer ceases, and all those who are alert to do evil are cut off, who cause a person to be indicted by a word, and lay snare for one who reproves in the gate, and who deprive the innocent of justice with false testimony. Therefore Yahweh, who redeemed Abraham, says concerning the house of Jacob, Jacob shall no longer be ashamed, neither shall his face grow pale. But when he sees his children, the work of my hands, in the middle of him, they will sanctify my name. Yes, they will sanctify the Holy One of Jacob, and will stand in awe of the God of Israel. They also who err in spirit will come to understanding, and those who grumble will receive instruction. Wow. Chapter 30, last chapter for today. Woe to the rebellious children, says Yahweh, who take counsel but not from me, and who make an alliance but not with my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, who set out to go down into Egypt, and have not asked my advice, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to take refuge in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore the strength of Pharaoh will be your shame, and the refuge in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For their princes are at Zon, and their ambassadors have come to Hanes. They shall all be ashamed because of the people that can't profit them. They are not a help nor a profit, but a shame and also a reproach. The burden of the animals of the south. Through the land of trouble and anguish, of the lioness and the lion, the viper and the fiery flying serpent, they carry their riches on the shoulders of young donkeys, and their treasures on the humps of camels, to an unprofitable people. For Egypt helps in vain, and to no purpose. Therefore I have called her Rahab, who sits still. Now go, write it before them on a tablet, and inscribe it in a book, that it may be for the time to come, forever and ever. For it is a rebellious people, lying children, children who will not hear Yahweh's law, who tell the seers, don't see, and the prophets, don't prophesy to us right things. Tell us pleasant things, prophesy deceits. Get out of the way, turn away from the path, cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. Therefore the Holy One of Israel says, because you despise this word, and trust in oppression and perverseness, and rely on it, therefore this iniquity shall be to you like a breach ready to fall, swelling out in a high wall, whose breaking comes suddenly in an instant. He will break it as a potter's vessel is broken, breaking it in pieces without sparing, so that there won't be found among the broken pieces a piece good enough to take fire from the hearth or to dip up water out of the cistern. For thus says the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, you will be saved in returning and rest. Your strength will be in the quietness and confidence. You refused, but you said, no, for we will flee on horses. Therefore you will flee, and we will ride on the swift. Therefore you who I'm going to back up. Verse 15. For thus says the Lord said, For thus said the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, quote, You will be saved in returning and rest. Your strength will be in quietness and in confidence. Unquote. You refused, but you said, quote, No, we will flee on horses, unquote. Therefore you will flee, and, quote, we will ride on the swift, unquote. Therefore those who pursue you will be swift. 1,000 will flee at the threat of one. At the threat of 5 you will flee until you are left like a beacon on the top of a mountain, like a banner on a hill. Therefore Yahweh will wait, that he may be gracious to you, and therefore he will be exalted, that he may have mercy on you. For Yahweh is a God of justice. Blessed are those who wait for him, for the people will dwell in Zion at Jerusalem. You will weep no more. He will surely be gracious to you at the voice of your cry. When he hears you, he will answer you. Though the Lord may give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teachers won't be hidden any more, but your eyes will see your teachers. And when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, This is the way, walk in it. You shall defile the overlaying of your engraved images of silver and the plating of your molten images of gold. You shall cast them away as an unclean thing. You shall tell it, Go away. He will give the rain of your seed with which you will sow the ground, and the bread of the increase of the ground will be rich and plentiful. In that day your livestock will feed in large pastures. The oxen likewise and the young donkeys that till the ground will eat savory feed, which has been winnowed with the shovel and with the fork. There will be brooks and streams of water on every lofty mountain and on every high hill in the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall. Moreover, the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun, and the light of the sun will be 7 times brighter, like the light of the 7 days. In the day that Yahweh binds up the fracture of his people and heals the wound they were struck with. Behold, Yahweh's name comes from far away, burning with his anger, and in thick rising smoke. His lips are full of indignation. His tongue is a devouring fire. His breath is an ever-flowing stream that reaches even to the neck, to sift the nations with a sieve of destruction. A bridle that leads to ruin will be in the jaws of the peoples. You will have a song as in the night when a holy feast is kept, and gladness of heart as when one goes with the flute to come to Yahweh's mountain, to Israel's rock. Yahweh will cause his glorious voice to be heard, and will show the descent of his arm, with the indignation of his anger, and the flame of a devouring fire, with a blast, storm, and hailstones. For through Yahweh's voice the Assyrian will be dismayed. He will strike him with his rod. Every stroke of the rod of punishment which Yahweh will lay on him will be with the sound of tambourines and harps. He will fight with them in battles, brandishing weapons, for his burning place has long been ready. Yes, it is prepared for the king. He has made its pyre deep and large with fire and much wood. Yahweh's breath, like a stream of sulfur, kindles it. Well, that's it for today's reading. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. God bless you.